My life definitely didn't go as I had thought it would. I have 5 children, and 3 of them either have disabilities or have had serious medical problems. And my wife passed away of cancer. I've spent a lot of time thinking about the idea of a loving God and the problem of pain. A friend of mine texted me, and she's struggling with cancer as well. And she asked, how do you keep your faith when you're going through something like this? And I thought for an hour before I texted her back and was praying about this. And my name's Dave Van Vickle, and this is Ascension Presents. My wife Amber and I wanted to have a large family. We hoped that we would have chaos all the time. And when we started to have children, it was just like we were moving forward with our plan and God's plan for our life. And we had our first son and everything was great. And when we had our second son, Max, he was born 2 months early. And at the 1-month head ultrasound that they did, they found that he had severe brain damage, and that they told us that we needed to prepare for cerebral palsy and things like crutches and wheelchairs. And it was honestly the very first experience of the cross I ever had in my life. And it was surreal to hear this, the idea of my son not being able to do the things that he wants to do, or to watch his brother do things that he can't do, was just so hard. It was almost like just 2 trains coming for each other. I just crashed in the middle and I didn't know what to do. At the time, I felt like so far from God. It was like, this question constantly, where are you in all of this? As we continued on to build our family, and our daughter Josie, and she was our first girl after 3 boys. And she was just like a dream girl, dream baby. It was like everybody was so excited. Her big brothers were so protective of her and everything. And when she was 1 year old, my wife Amber said, "Dave, come in here right away. There's something wrong with Josie." So I went into the kitchen, and she put a spoon in Josie's hand, in her right hand, and she couldn't hold it. And we kept putting the spoon in her hand. She just couldn't hold it. And I stood Josie up, and I saw that like everything on her right side just kind of slumped down. And I realized that she'd had some kind of stroke. And we rushed her to Children's Hospital. And within 40 minutes, we were in an auditorium with like 30 doctors. They were terrified about what had happened to her. It was a massive stroke. And they said that basically, for whatever they were seeing, she was at super high risk for another one to happen. They did not think she would get back use of her right side. And it was just, again, one of these moments where we were like, where are you, God, in all of this? Our closest priest friend, came to visit us at the hospital. And when he prayed with her, miraculously, like her right side kind of came alive again. And she was fine. But they told us that Josie they found out that she had a genetic disorder. That where if she even bumped her head a little bit, she was at very high risk for a stroke. And I remember this is like a terrible situation, because they said, don't worry, she'll grow out of it by the time she's 5. But at this time, she wasn't even 2 yet. There was always chaos in the house. She had 3 older brothers who were roughhousing and everything. How are we going to possibly protect our precious little girl? And we came home, and again, we had to just say, like, God, where are you in all of this? This is so hard to every day worry about our daughter possibly dying even. My wife in particular really struggled with this moment in our life and our marriage. And remember her saying to me, "How are you surviving this?" And I said, "Look, Amber, every morning I'm just saying, God, Josie is more yours than mine. You love her more than I do even. Like, I'm just going to give her to you for just this day, and I'm going to trust in you. Whatever happens, it's in your hands." And this is kind of the way we were able to survive. It's just like continually like putting her in God's hands. And the fact of the matter is, all of us who have children should be doing this every day, whether they've had a stroke or not, or they have some sort of genetic disorder. But life went on. Josie was fine. She got to 5 and everything was okay. And we kind of started to heal from that as well again. And we started to decide, like, okay, we want more kids. And when my wife was pregnant with our 5th child, Luisa, we were so excited, but Amber would get so sick from her pregnancies that she would joke, like, I hope that it's twins so that, we can get like 2 for the price of 1. And people would like pray, like, oh, we're going to pray for you that it's twins, And I remember we went in for the gender ultrasound, and Amber saying, like, wouldn't it be so awesome if we found out that there were 2 of them there? And as soon as I saw the look on the technician's face, I knew something was wrong. I had seen this look before on many medical professionals' faces, and she came around. She said, I think you need to talk to the doctor. And they told us that Louisa had spina bifida, and she had a massive hole in her spine that was inoperable, and that she had some sort of genetic issues. It was once again in that moment where it was like, God, where are you in all of this? When the doctors at Children's heard about this, they thought, look, statistically speaking, there's got to be something going on with this family. Like, there has to be some kind of genetic issue that's causing all of these. And so they ran several tests and found absolutely no genetic link between the three different things that had happened to our family. And that day that they told us about it, this young doctor came and said to us, like, I mean, I don't think he was all that good at talking to people, but he said to us, your family's pretty fascinating to us because, the stats are that it was like as if you won Powerball 3 times. And I remember thinking, just how could someone say that to me? Like, my children are suffering, and this is such a callous thing to say, but it sunk in. It was like, what is going on? If that's the odds, like, what is happening in our family? It wasn't long after that that we came to grips with this and started to heal again. And then one day I was looking at my wife, Amber, and she was getting just so skinny. And I knew what she was eating. Like, there was no reason for her to be losing so much weight. So I convinced her finally to go to the doctor. And she had been having some issues, but nothing serious. When they finally revealed to us the results of all the testing, they said that Amber had stage 4 cancer and that she had possibly weeks, maybe months to live. That was the very first appointment that we had. It was, once again, it was surreal. There was no other way to describe it than it was like, am I going to wake up from this nightmare? Here I am with 5 children, very young, right? 2 of them are in wheelchairs. One of them already has had such a severe medical issue. And now I'm looking at my best friend, my wife, passing away. Like, how can this possibly be? Once again, we were left wrestling with the problem of pain, the idea that we were dealing with all of these things and asking God where he was in all of this. Over the next 4 years, my wife would struggle against her cancer, and there would be just like a roller coaster of emotions. At one point, she would almost beat it, and then she'd become chemo resistant and it would come back roaring. She'd be so sick. For every pain, every sacrifice, every problem that we went through while Amber was sick, we always chose an intention for it. She would have a pain in her back and she would say, what should we pray for? Like, what should we offer this up for? Or she'd have at the same time maybe some terrible like sickness in her stomach, and she would say, okay, what's our intention going to be for that? So I don't just have to lay here and do nothing. There's some merit that can be had from this. And it kept her sane, I think, during that time, and kept her close to Christ on the cross. It wasn't until 4 years later, she was in so much pain, and it was right before Christmas, and I was begging her, like, Amber, just go to the hospital so you can get your pain taken care of. Then you can celebrate Christmas and have a nice Christmas with the kids. But I think she knew what was coming. And she said, no, I want to stay home for Christmas. And then the day after, if the pain's still there, I'll let you take me to the hospital. We did that. We had a beautiful Christmas with lots of fun memories and great laughs and everything like that. The next day, she was just in terrible pain. So we checked into the hospital and they ran some tests, and it turns out the cancer was everywhere. There was nothing they could do at this point. It was a moment in my life when, at this time I had been staying up all night, some nights looking for trial drugs and the next thing that would fight the cancer. And it was this moment where I had to transition and realize, like, it's time to stop looking for something to save her and start preparing her for her eternal home. It was just a horrible thing to have to go through. I still remember preparing for marriage and talking about all of our dreams and hopes for the future and the life that we thought we'd be living. I remember walking down that aisle and thinking of all of the great things that were going to come about. And during this time we were in the hospital, she was very lucid, and I'm so thankful for that. And we were able to, have the conversations that needed to happen and gain some memories. And the kids would come up and we'd pray the rosary, and we'd still even try to evangelize people and all those kinds of things. And it was kind of like the hospital became our family. It was like a kind of a beautiful thing at the end. Towards the very end, Amber started to sleep more and more, but each day we would have wonderful, beautiful moments with her of lucidity where she was able to talk with us and be her old self. And we would laugh and be joyful just like we always were at home with our family. Then on February 23rd, 2023 at noon, just almost exactly, Amber finally laid down her cross and passed away. When my wife passed away, there was no doubt in our minds where she went, right, or where she was going. We believe in the resurrection. And there was a patient there who asked me, do you really believe that Jesus rose from the dead bodily? He asked me that one day. And I said, of course I believe that. I was like, I based my whole life on that one thing. And he said, I guess that's why you guys are always laughing over there. And I said, yeah, because we know where she's going. And I said, we're sad to lose her, but we know exactly where she's going. And we know that really that was her home more so than here. How do you keep your faith when you're going through something like this? I think really the answer for this, and the answer for all of us, is that if you're going through problems here on earth, and we all are, this is a valley of tears. Everybody has a cross to bear. Oftentimes we think of God as like up there looking down, watching us, and maybe showering us with graces and doing the things he's supposed to do, consoling us. But it's like he's way up there. And I said to my friend, the sooner you can get him out of the clouds and realize that he's on the other side of the cross that you're bearing, the better. If you realize that every time you experience pain, it's like you're on that cross and Jesus is right on the other side experiencing it with you. Not just watching you like a spectator, but actually going through it with you. That's the secret to God's heart, is to enter in to his crucifixion and enter into his suffering and death. And in that, we find resurrection. We find new life. I know that many of you probably feel no solace or consolation from the words I'm saying, because when you're in it, it's so hard to understand. But I want to give you just that one thing to hold on to, that Christ is right there. He is right in the midst of it. If I look back at those times when I felt like, where are you? And was kind of shouting to find him. He was so close to us and so near to our hearts. Why? Because again, Jesus is just on the other side of that cross that you carry. From all of us at Ascension Presents, God bless.